Good evening. It is Tuesday, October 14th. This is the Guilford Board of Education. Welcome to our regular meeting. I invite you to join us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Welcome, everybody. The first item is action on the minutes, Board of Ed meeting minutes for September 8th, 2025. Is there a motion to approve those minutes?
So moved.
Second.
Any comments or corrections? I didn't have any either. All right. We have a motion and a second. All those in favor of approving these meeting minutes, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? All right. So that's unanimous. Thank you. Now I would request a motion to approve the September 22nd, 2025 Board of Education workshop meeting minutes.
So moved.
Second.
I did have a correction on the very last page under adjournment. I've actually given Terry the corrections because I failed to provide the sufficient information to finish these minutes. So under adjournment, Moira Rader made a motion to go into an executive session. I had it 9:07 in my notes. At the end of that sentence, Dr. Freeman was invited to join the executive session because we do need to note when we've invited the superintendent. I then provided in the second sentence, the board returned from executive session at 9:23 p.m. on a motion by Moira Rader and seconded by John Del Ventura with a unanimous vote. And then added at the end at 9:24 p.m. on a motion by Arnold Scretta and seconded by Jennifer Baldwin. The board voted unanimously to adjourn the meeting because we do have to vote on each of those steps. Are there any other corrections?
I just have one. On page 2, the 7th paragraph down where it starts, Moira Rader pointed back to the research and behaviors of adolescents as well as the addictive design of social media. I just want to correct this next sentence. She also mentioned that we are putting the teachers and administrators in a situation where they are policing cell phone use. So just add cell phone use, and it may impact the important teacher-student relationship.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And that's it.
Okay. Are there any other corrections that people wanted to note? All right, so I have a motion and a second. All those in favor of approving the September 22nd, 2025 Guilford Board of Education workshop meeting minutes as amended, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? All right, so that's everyone. Thank you. All right, we are at number 4, which is an opportunity for public comment on topics on the board agenda. You will note that there is also, those of you who have an agenda in front of you will notice there is an opportunity towards the end of the meeting for public comments not on the agenda. So this is strictly for those topics on the agenda. If you would like to address the board, we ask you to please come up to the podium. Give your name and address, and we ask you to stay within 3 minutes, and we will keep time just so we can give everyone an equal opportunity.
Thank you. Polly Reeder, Sage Hollow Road. I just wanted to speak to following September 22nd's discussion of the board workshop meeting on the cell phone smart devices policy. And I apologize because I really congealed all the thoughts or put together maybe quite so concise. But it occurred to me that it's so different than what my experience was, and I've heard from my kids, that they think that literally like two people in my whole grade know where their locker is or use it. It's so different. And so the kids are carrying everything around in their backpacks all the time, is what I'm hearing at the high school versus at Baldwin and Adams. Everyone uses their lockers. They're encouraged to. But here they're traveling longer distances. So that to me made it quite a difference in terms of thinking about the specific policy implementation. And that if a kid has a cell phone that's not in a yonder pack, and so it's off and it's in their backpack, it is still with them in the room, which I apologize, I didn't look up the research, but I think it's pretty much, it makes your mind a sieve, right? Even if the device is off, but in the same room. So there was that. It was just completely different than how I had been picturing things. And then also I wanted to add that, that would come along with, I was looking at the plan, the portrait of a graduate outcomes and how much lunch interaction plays into that and how important that is. And from both of my kids, I hear repeatedly that there are kids that are on their cell phones a lot. They're not as socially comfortable. They keep trying to engage them in conversation. So I think different than at the 22nd, I mean, it does actually happen. And so as the conversation was going on about the amount of passing time between classes, that was reduced to 5 minutes back in 2018 when there was the start time change. Was when passing time for every minute throughout the entire day was taken away from the students in order to achieve that. So I've asked my kids about that and, can you get everywhere you need to go and that sort of thing. And they're like, well, it's really no different than at Adams where they have 2 or 3 minutes between class at Adams, right? I mean, can you imagine as adults even being able to switch gears and go from topic to topic and actually focus? So I think that, because that 5 minute now reduced to 5 minute period is an important time for a little stress reduction, a little cognitive break, a little social emotional wellness. And so lastly, I just wanted to say that I was also looking through the Connecticut last year's statement, and it talks about the district's assisting families.
Polly, I'm just going to ask you to wrap it up, please. Thank you.
Yes. With regard to parental controls on devices, ways to monitor technology use. I think a lot more could be done in terms of that. And the last thing I was going to say was that I know there was some concern, and I don't see sort of the yonder
Polly,
pouch.
I'm really I want to
Yes.
give other people a chance. So your 3 minutes has come up.
I don't see that as a trust issue. I see that as an issue for addiction, for reducing, because that's what they're made to do, for reducing the burden on teachers and staff, the relationship issues that it will cause. So, and I think it's really going to be, it can be posed as being helpful for families, not hurtful. Thank you.
Thank you so
Thank
much.
you very much.
Is there anyone else who'd like to come forward? Wonderful.
Hello.
My name is Shelley Farhadian. I live on Sunset Creek Road, and I wanted to speak to the agenda item regarding personal communicative devices for the students. Is now the time to speak about that? Okay.
Absolutely.
I'll try to keep it short. You may recognize me. I was here last year as part of the T committee, but now I'm here just in my own personal capacity as a parent of 3 children in the school system here. I wanted to express that I'm disappointed that we don't have a cell phone policy in place for this school year that I feel is a reasonable one. In Baldwin and Adams, the policy continues to be that children are told to keep their phones in their lockers during the day. They can continue to wear smartwatches into the class, but they're told not to use their smartwatches for anything other than checking the time. As I recently told Principal Buno, this is like having a child wear a cupcake on their wrist all day, but telling them not to eat it. It's simply unfair to place an addictive device within sight of a child, all day and ask them not to use it for the thing that the device was meant to be used for. So it's really not a reasonable policy to allow those smartwatches into the classroom. Likewise, keeping the phones in the lockers, I really want to emphasize this, is not a reasonable policy. 47% of students at Adams, 47% of students at Adams reported using a cell phone during class when they weren't supposed to. Clearly, the policy is not working. That statistic is available in the Teague report for anybody who wants to take a look at it. With regards to the high school, as you know, it's even worse. It's a non-policy to ask teachers to be regulating this in each and every classroom. Some of you know my mother is a high school teacher in New York City. In her school this year, they went from Teacher's Choice last year to a policy where the school bought for about $500 wooden lockers that they have placed around the school. I believe it's one for each homeroom. It might be one for each grade, but it's hundreds of children, each of which has a little cubby the size of a phone and a number. And when the kids come to school in the morning, they put their phone away. And when they leave at the end of the day, they take it with them. The cost is minimal. I'm told that kids are not missing the bus with the time that it takes to put it and take it. I understand there's some concern about lost instructional time with whatever policy goes into place to collecting phones potentially. I want to emphasize, time is being lost in the children's minds when they're thinking about the dings that are going off in their phone in their locker. You guys know from the data that was presented by myself and Dr. Loomis last year that every time a child anticipates a notification, that's 2 minutes of brain time lost where they're not paying attention to what's going on. You might call that lost instructional time as well. It's just coming in a different format. So I really urge this board, who's already doing so much good work. I have so much respect for all of you. I know you volunteer your time for this. Please, I urge you to take a policy into account that takes into account the addictive nature of these devices and the well-being of our children, as I know you all do. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else who would like to address the board? I do want to just take this opportunity to note that for public comment, we limit to 3 minutes, so we make sure that people have enough time. Please feel free if you have more to say. We each have our email addresses on the Guilford Public Schools website. There are phone numbers if you want to ask for a conversation. No one of us can represent the board, but we can certainly listen and take in ideas. So this is not to limit, but simply to make sure people have an opportunity. It's not the only way to communicate with us. So I do want to make that clear. All right, we're going to move on to review and approval of expenditures for the month of September 2025.
Okay, and I have no cheaters who weren't here at operations. So if
Happy to help if you need it.
we're going to put that far away. All right, thank you. Okay, expenditures for the month of September were $5,088,161.58. which puts us at 20.89% of the budget as compared to 22.81% of the budget at this time last year. We are attributing most of that slight decrease to just simply timing, and we think that we're going to wind up catching up as certain bills come in. It's more just timing of when we received invoices. So don't get too excited about that. Revenue for September was $42,242.29, which includes $698.86 for non-resident tuition, $31,168 for pre-K tuition, $6,935 for adult education, and $3,440.43 for Medicaid. Our salaries are exactly as expected and are in line with where they were at this time last year. Employee benefits are a little bit lower than the prior year, but again, we do expect that those are going to regulate. Purchased services is in fact down a bit, and this is partially because of careful spending out of the operations department. Tuition is currently lower than where we were last year, and it is way too early to make any predictions about how that will trend as the year progresses. Supplies and materials, we are about where we were last year, a little bit lower, but again, we're expecting that to balance out as the months click by. Capital, we are waiting for reimbursement from the capital lease, which we are anticipating receiving in October, which can balance out capital to where we were last year. Transportation, we're about in line. And that is about it. Anyone have any additional questions or comments based on what we discussed at the operations committee meeting?
All right. Thank you so much. As Ms. Peck noted, this was discussed at the previous meeting. As none of my colleagues have any additional comments or questions, I am going to ask for a motion to approve the September 2025 financial reports for fiscal year 25-26.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstain. All right, that's everyone. We are up to number 6, communications. Do any of my colleagues have communications to share that they received over the last month?
We have a handful of emails related to school start times.
Yes.
And I sent out a note to all of us about my conversation with the principal of Branford High School on their bell-to-bell keeping phones out of the classrooms.
Right. Thank you. Yeah, we'll bring that up. I do want to take this opportunity at communications to note my great appreciation to the woman sitting to my right, Moira Rader, who has served on the Board of Education for several terms. Her term ends in November. And because she is working so hard as our state representative, will not be running again for the board. Moira has served on a number of committees. She has been most recently the vice chair of this board, has contributed in so many ways. And I'll just note a few if other of my colleagues want to mention something. One is, even before Moira was state representative, you were really watching the legislature quite closely. So I could really depend on Moira to bring to us items that were being considered or debated or introduced, which was just so valuable to kind of keep that connection to what's going on at the state. As you can imagine, that only increased as Moira took on that role. Moira has always taken this job so very seriously, this volunteer job so very seriously, considering the different issues that come before us with great care, with really thorough thoughtfulness, and in a very engaged way in terms of discussion. And has also just been a dear colleague and friend, and someone that I could so rely on as the chair to bounce things off of, get a second opinion, get a check on how I was thinking or doing things. And so those are just 3 of the things that I have just so valued in your participation. The great thing is that even though Moira won't be on the board, she is just a stone's throw away. And so I expect I will still be checking in with her. But I just wanted to acknowledge that this is her last regular Board of Education meeting with us after many, many years of being on this board. 8 years, 2 full terms. We do have, oh gosh, it won't be a big deal, don't worry. But you are worth it, my friend. We do have a recognition. This is very carefully wrapped by our wonderful administrator. I'll do this quickly. a recognition of service, Moira M. Rader, with thanks and appreciation for 8 years of dedicated service as a member of the Guilford Board of Education. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. I was going to say something at the end, like for a minute, but you completely surprised me with this. And I'll just say a few things now. It's just that I just kept thinking about tonight and kept talking to my kids the last few weeks. Like, I can't believe it. Like, I have my last meetings coming up and feels weird. But thankfully, in my other role as a state representative, I still get to stay connected to all of this. And literally started by joining my PTO at A.W. Cox. And as happens in this community, the minute you say you want to help, people are happy to have you help. And I just have such gratitude. I kept thinking about it today. So much gratitude for the colleagues, past and present, that I've gotten to work with. Consistent superintendent through all of these years. The teachers I've gotten to be in classrooms with, the administrators, and most importantly, the students. I'm a mom of 4, and this has always been led by knowing how much this community has given to my family. And so it was my way of giving back. And I believe in community. I believe in public service, obviously. I'm a glutton for it because I've been doing 2 for the last 3 years, but I do it with joy and gratitude. And I'll be sad to leave in this capacity, but it's so nice that in my other job, I get to inform you guys and share in this important work around public education that I believe in vehemently and wholeheartedly, and at a time where it feels like it's very tenuous, that we have a community that so wholeheartedly supports public education, and I hope continues to do so, and that I hand the reins off to all these wonderful people here and maybe some new faces that will continue that great work, and I'm just extraordinarily grateful. So thank you.
Oh,
Thank you.
Thank you, Marie.
absolutely. Great. I'm now going to ask our wonderful high school principal, Ms. Schaaf, to come up because we're so excited to welcome back student representatives that have been on the board, but also welcome some new students as well.
Yes, thank you. It is my pleasure to welcome back Kira Davenport, Kyra Amani, and Zach Milano, all familiar faces to you from last year. And new to the venture is Grace Della Ventura, who is joining with us tonight. She is a co-founder of a local nonprofit called Roots for Relief, and they participate in an annual campaign called Wishing for Wheels. Last year, that resulted in them donating, I believe it was 500 bicycles to those in need. And I believe there's a little bit of a typo in the bio that I sent you. This is an annual campaign that they work on. She's a dedicated athlete. She is a member of Students Against Destructive Decisions, as well as an active member in Guilford Youth Feminist Alliance. And I'm delighted to have her join her colleagues this evening. I think you've got a great set of 4 student reps. So thank you.
Thank you so much. Grace, welcome. Great to have you. And so then I'm going to get the opportunity to ask you all to share your reports.
Hi again. So I have Lakes again this year, and the Guilford Lakes, they have the PAW program. So they set up a PAW program that's up and running. Students have been instructed on the 4 expected behaviors at Lakes: respect, responsibility, safety, and kindness. When students are demonstrating behaviors that exceed our expectations or doing something great, they receive a golden paw that explains what they did and who gave it to them. Many students have already received some paws. They also have a buddy program called Buddies in Action, which involves older grade level students partnering with younger classes to establish peer-mentor relationships. They meet bi-weekly in social settings, and their classes have already begun. And then they also celebrated Custodian Appreciation Day. So they were celebrated for this national day. Students, staff, and the PTO recognized Mr. Bill, Roman, Lewis, and Cassie with cards, posters, gift cards, student-made keys for a keychain for Mr. Bill, and a basket of goodies. Many thanks to all the custodians at Guilford Schools for keeping our schools sparkling.
And then for Baldwin, The kids are fully settled into their school year, especially enjoying their brand new playground, which was made possible by the Baldwin Middle School Playground Project Committee, which they wanted to give thanks to. And then for the 5th grade, they had team building at Camp Hazen YMCA in Chester, where they enjoyed a bunch of activities, and they also wanted to thank the staff members there. And then this month's theme for their school is courage in its many forms, like speaking up or trying a new way to encourage someone to participate. And then for Melissa Jones, they also had a great start to their school year. They held a welcoming ceremony for the kindergartners and new students and staff. The 3rd graders made crowns for the people at the ceremony, and they also had an outdoor reading party to celebrate the fact that they had 3,000 books read this past summer. And then for the rest of the updates, they have had, and they're going to have like a bunch more events. Like grade 1, they already went to the Guilford Fair, and then grade 2, they're going to Bushy Hill, and then lastly for grade 4, they're going to the Florence Griswold House and Museum.
Great.
For Guilford High School, we have homecoming coming up, I think, next Saturday. So all the students are getting really psyched for that. The football team here at the high school is also doing really well. Been to a couple of games. It's been a pretty good atmosphere. And then we have a Voices concert next Tuesday, which you can stop by here at the high school, I think. We'll see.
Great.
So far this year at Calvin Lee, the students have been participating in many activities, including the annual float project, which they had named the Leader, which was a ship sailing through the sound and time. The girls at Calvin Lee have also been invited to attend a mother and daughter night out, which is taking place November 10th. It's facilitated by our own Nurse Kellogg, and it's to spread awareness about puberty. And then this past week, Calvin Lee students participated in the 3rd annual Bike Walking Roll to School, where they're invited to ride their bikes, scooters, or walk to 4 different stations in 30 minutes before school started, which was ran by Officer Martone and Officer Thornton. There's also a color run this week, which is this Sunday, and it is a 3K run walk, which costs $5 and is all ages from the grade of kindergarten up. And then at Adams, parents just went to back to school night where they introduced the new school mascot, Rocky the Raider, and a student volunteer has already become the mascot for sport and school events.
Fun.
Can't change it.
Walking around.
In early October, the Adams students also took their first major field trip of the year in partnership with the Empower Leadership, which is an organization that specializes in adventure-based team building programs, collaboration, leadership, problem solving, and of course fun. It was a memorable day connecting with personal growth. And finally, the Adams National Junior Honor Society is in full action preparing for their annual Blue Bash, which will take place this Friday.
And then I hope I'm not. I just saw cell phones were on the the plan for today.
You are welcome. We welcome anyone's input.
Yeah. So I have a couple friends from Branford and a couple friends from Madison. So I just reached out to them to see what they thought because I know their schools implemented some cell phone policies. From Madison. They really liked it there. They thought it was a good way to stay productive in classes. Those phones are still away. I think the teacher collects them at the beginning of class. But they still felt like it was a good transitional period as, you're coming from middle school to high school and eventually to college where you'll have your phones. Whereas Branford students weren't very fond of the Yonder pouches. They just felt like as high schoolers, and especially some of the upperclassmen, felt like it wasn't a strong transitional period from once again that middle school, high school, and eventually to college. So
Thank you for sharing.
Thank you for asking.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And please know throughout the year, and not just at this meeting, right? we welcome your thoughts, what you're hearing from the students, essentially that you're representing as part of being here. We love to hear it. We would love to hear it. It's really important.
Thank you.
Excellent. Anything else? Well, thank you. As I say every time, you're welcome to stay. We also know that you're all really busy. And so if you would prefer to exit for the rest of the meeting, you're also welcome to do that. And thank you again for being part of it.
Thank you very much. It's nice to have you back.
It is. It's great. All right. Dr. Freeman, Superintendent's Report.
Yes, so I have one item on the agenda and one additional item that we would like to share. In your folders tonight, you have the official October 1 enrollment report. And we have talked about this at the last two meetings, so I won't spend a lot of time on it other than to draw your attention to a few specific items. I do want to note that the total enrollment in the district this year is 2,974 students in the day school. When you add outplacements, it brings us to 3,017. I'm going to show you visually that that is a little below the projection. It's running slightly lower than we had anticipated. In the last several meetings when we have touched on this topic, we have primarily looked at the elementary distribution, classroom distribution snapshot. I do want to draw your attention to that one as well. I do want to particularly note kindergarten and first grade, and I want to note the averages. We rounded up, but I do think it's worth noting that the kindergarten average, if you look more specifically, is 15.5. We rounded the 0.5 all the way up to 16, and first grade is currently sitting at 18.5. We rounded all the way up to 19 with those two numbers. I think that in those two columns, the half is important to note. We again, in grades K through 4, are sitting right around 17 or 18 students and class averages, and you'll see those distributions there. I then really do want to draw your attention to the visual graphic that you have. And what you will note is that we have timed out of the HCP enrollment study. 24-25 was the last year of that study. And again, that compared to our actual, the orange actual line shows how stable we were compared to a number of other Connecticut school districts that saw that really precipitous 45-degree drop-off that HCP had projected for us when the study was originally completed. What's interesting, though, is that as we move into the SLAM study, and while SLAM was they were right on for the first 2 years, and now this year there's significant and immediate deviation. We don't know if that's a one-year deviation. We don't know if that's a blip. We're going to have to pay attention to that moving forward. But it is worth noting that this year our enrollment dropped fairly significantly and more significantly than was projected by the SLAM study or by the enrollments that we had been tracking. So again, this is our October 1st enrollment. This becomes our official enrollment at the state for purposes moving forward. We will continue to use these numbers as we specifically begin budget planning moving into budget season for next year. And I will also note that to accommodate those numbers, remember that we brought in 2 additional kindergarten sections this year that had been unbudgeted for. There's an additional kindergarten section at Lakes, and there is an additional kindergarten section at Leet. So where this budget had planned on 11 kindergarten sections, we have in fact filled 13 to create that 15.5 average kindergarten size that I just mentioned. So it would have been significantly higher had we not added those 2 sections.
Right. Any questions about anything here or comments? No. I mean, we are seeing, except for grade 5, we're seeing, first, second, kindergarten be lower than any of the classes above them. And the thought was we'd start trending back up again. And the assumption is we're going to trend up at the lower grades as they come in, right?
Yeah.
That's where the trend is the change is going to happen. But
The projection is that we were to stabilize and then begin
Right,
growing.
begin
And so
growing.
again, it's going to be really interesting. It looked like stabilizing was happening.
Yeah.
And now we've dropped off one more year. So again, we're going to have to wait and see.
Okay.
I don't know if it has anything to do with the change in kindergarten age entry.
Right.
And so we're just trying to watch and figure out what exactly may be going on there.
Okay.
And if I may, I wanted to add one additional item, and I wanted to invite Dr. Goss to share with you about the recent presentation that she and some of our teachers had made at the State Department of Education.
Can I just ask a question based on enrollment real quick? Unless that has to do with enrollment.
It does not have anything to do with enrollment.
Keeping on the enrollment subject, how are we doing with open choice?
Oh, great question.
So we had enrolled, I believe it was 8 students for this year. I think we experienced some attrition of that enrollment over the summer. I should have brought that number for tonight, and I didn't, but I can have it specifically for you at our next meeting.
Are they included in this number here?
Yes, they would be included in that number, and remember that those seats are only offered on a space available. We would not the additional teaching sections that I just mentioned were not impacted by open enrollment.
Right.
In fact, we only open up open choice from first grade on. So it's a good time to make clear that those students would never impact staffing.
And when you say attrition, were there any details on kind of what led to that? You know, I know this is it's a long bus ride. I would imagine that might be one of the biggest reasons for attrition. But
we don't get the opportunity to. It happens before we get to know those families. So in year 1 of the program, I believe we had 5 or 6 families enroll initially at the close of the previous school year, and by the time we opened in September, only one of those students actually joined us. It was almost complete loss over the summer.
Right.
This year, I believe we enrolled 9 or 10, and I think we held on to 7 or 8, so it was a much smaller a number. And again, I can get that for you and speak to it specifically at our next meeting.
Great.
Do we know with the open choice kids, I mean, it's elementary, so there's not a lot of after school programming, but are we seeing any of them participate in anything after school, or is that that travel time limitation impacting their participation beyond the school day?
New Haven, or the state provides a bus for them at the close of the school day. I don't know. I'd have to check with the principals about whether they are coming back for weekend activities or PTO events or family events that take place. I'm happy to have more to say on that topic at the next meeting. I'll speak to the principals.
Are you ready for me now?
Yes. Sorry about that.
We were invited by the Department of Education to share our educator growth plan with a statewide audience. They had us in a 60-person room, and we packed it with 72 people who wanted to know about our ed growth plan. And then while we were presenting, one of the folks came over and asked if we would consider presenting multiple times across the state for the rest of the year. So I was excited about that. Megan Ferrara and Kara Mulqueen Teasdale, who were on the PDEC committee, were also there presenting that day. And I think teachers really loved hearing about that from other teachers. And it was just a wonderful opportunity to share what we're doing.
Would you, and you may have just said it, would you just remind us again, what was the event or the meeting or the conference that this took place at?
It was a statewide gathering specifically to look at educator growth plans across the state.
Okay, so that was the focus topic. Okay.
Yes. Yeah. And we were primarily focused on feedback. We actually had the bonus of one of the preeminent researchers in feedback and educational feedback come up to us during the presentation and say, well, these are all the kinds of feedback that work. I thought, well, yes, that's why we wrote the plan the way we did. So it was just a wonderful opportunity. And I think that having Kara and Megan there is really what made the day.
Yeah. That's so great to hear.
It's enormously exciting that all the work that we did around supporting our teachers in Guilford may have positive ripple effects in other districts around the state, and that other districts may be looking at amending or changing their teacher growth plans to be able to support educators and growing their practice in other communities as well as Guilford. I believe a couple other presenters at that event ended up with empty rooms because people wanted to hear about the Guilford plan.
Way to go.
So we're just really appreciative of the work that the team put in here locally, of the plan that we have in place for our teachers, and appreciate the state giving us the opportunity to share about it.
Yeah, that's wonderful. That's great. All right, up to the board agenda. 9.1 is personnel items. We're being asked to ratify the resignation of the following two teachers. Danielle Bailey, Adams Middle School Special Education, 19 years of experience. And Erin Marchetti, District ELL teacher, 9 years of experience. Is there a motion to ratify these two resignations?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed or abstained? No. All right. And we certainly thank them for their service to Guilford Public Schools. We are also being asked to ratify the retirement of the following teacher: Kim Parent-Heisch, Adams Middle School science teacher, 21 years of experience. Is there a motion to approve this, is there a motion to ratify this retirement?
So moved. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed or abstain? All right. And certainly a thanks for that 21 years of service as well.
And I would just want to note that in all three of these cases, there are plans in place to cover these classrooms, to transition, and searches that are stood up and in place to replace these teachers on a permanent basis.
Okay, right, because these are 3 October dates.
Correct.
Yeah.
So at our last meeting, when I shared with you that we were fully staffed in all certified areas, now this is some movement. And again, we are covered. We have collaborated with these individuals as well as the districts to which they may be moving in those cases. And there are searches in place to find successor teachers.
9.2 is to approve the donation of a used car valued at $1,500 from Palumbo's Automotive to the GHS Automotive, technology classes. So this is a fun one. So Palumbo's Automotive has donated a 2006 Hyundai Tucson valued at $1,500 for the use as a kind of a demo car in our automotive technology class. And certainly Palumbo's does an amazing amount of support in a whole host of ways for students in our schools and in our community. So is there a motion to approve this donation?
So moved. Second.
All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstained. All right, all in favor. Wonderful, thank you.
Thank you, Columbus.
Yes, absolutely. So we are receiving for possible action the priorities and initiatives for Guilford Public Schools. This is a yearly event. I know the administrators take a look at these every year, redo them or tweak them or consider different approaches. So this was an item we received in our last meeting. We all had an opportunity to spend some time with both what is a full list of the priorities and initiatives, and then perhaps a condensed version is the best way to say it. So this is our opportunity, again, to receive for possible action. We can take two approaches. We can start with a motion and a second and then discuss, or if people would like to first dive into some discussion so we know where we're at.
If I may just illustrate that,
Absolutely.
just remind the board that we spoke about this initially in June as a board. The administrative leadership team worked on this in August. We all discussed it as a board at this meeting in September, and there is one change to the document, to both versions of the document as it sits in front of you, and that change is in the fourth bullet where we removed some of the jargon. We had been using the language of restorative practices, and recognized that in the public-facing version, that would not be something that would be quickly recognized. And as I'm looking at it, I actually want to say that I think we have this flip-flopped. I believe that we still have the word restorative practices in the public-facing version, and we took it out of the in-house version. So I would like to ask if there is to be a motion, that the motion is to approve these two documents as presented with one amendment, and it would be to reverse the fourth bullet in the two documents. And I apologize for that confusion and that I'm just saying it now.
So moved.
You want to maintain restorative
language.
practices?
Yes, so to be really clear, in the first document, that is the fuller version of the document, which is the document that it's the first version that you have. It has less white space and more verbiage on it.
Is implement behavioral practices and responses supportive of student belonging.
Yes, that should be on the first version. And on the second version, that is written with less jargon and more intended to be more easily consumed by the public, it should read instead, implement behavioral practices and responses supportive of student belonging.
Oh, so you're saying switch the two?
Switch the two bullets, yes.
So I would like to, as I spent some time with this again, I'd like to go back to a question of why we have two versions and whether we continue to need them. And I think it came up last year.
Last year was the first time we did it.
And there was some concern about some of the language. I'm going to use the word technical, which might not be the right word, right? But jargony perhaps, or technical language, right? And so for the first time, because we do this every year, have for my 14 years on the board, we created kind of a second, more condensed version. And as I was reading them, it's a question I don't feel that strongly, but wondering if we want to continue that and why we would want a version that doesn't fully capture what's in the larger version. I don't know who I'm throwing that out to. I don't know if anyone has an opinion.
I think right, when we did this, I think it's because, and maybe it was because the items we were developing were more, to your point, like using like educated vernacular, if you want to say, so in this way we were simplifying it. But I'm not sure where these appear that someone would have the two in front of them and discerning the difference. So I think it's to your
They
point.
never see both.
Yeah.
One of them is public facing, one of them is internal.
Right. So this is the public facing, the more simplified.
And I don't feel strong. If we feel like there are two really good uses for both, then
I think what I noticed is that the first document, the fuller document, is the one that continues to be used in-house. And so that is the one that Dr. Goss uses when working with buildings. It is the one that principals use when working with PLCs, teacher teams, and individual teachers as they set their goals.
Okay.
What I recognized is that the second version, in past years, when I would put the full version up, I then wouldn't usually read the slide to the audience that was looking at it. I would sort of speak about it in the way.
Okay.
So the second version sort of became what I said in front of the slide, and the fuller version was the slide that would be projected primarily during budget cycle, right? As we're talking about the work of the school and why we're making this significant ask every year. So both versions did live on the website. People had the ability to look at both. So
well, and as long as people have access to both versions, I think I also just want to make sure that that for people who are really interested in the more detailed version, had the opportunity to see the more detailed version and see what we're doing. So I'm fine continuing that, and thank you for reminding me how we were thinking about it. So, Dr. Freeman, you're suggesting, again, just the fourth bullet under initiatives, literally just switching one for the other.
Correct. The correction just got on the wrong sheet.
I'm certainly fine with that. Does anyone have any other thoughts about any of these as they reviewed them over the last month? All right. So, I'm going to ask, as long as people seem ready for this, for a motion then to approve with the amendment Dr. Freeman is asking for in, again, switching this fourth bullet under initiatives between the two versions. Ask for a motion to approve these priorities and initiatives as written.
And for the motion to approve both versions.
Both versions.
But I could picture principals bringing the simpler version to a PTO meeting, but
Right.
bringing the fuller version to a faculty meeting.
Sure.
So both will be approved and to be used as
Absolutely.
appropriate.
Okay.
Thank you.
So is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Any more discussion?
Nope.
All right, all those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstained. All right, that's everyone. Thank you. All right. 9.4 seems so crazy. Is to act on setting the 2026 graduation date of Friday, June 12th,
And doing it in April.
22. I know.
I love doing it.
The reason I say it sounds crazy,
Plane
although
tickets
I
can be purchased.
grandma. When my kids were in elementary school, we actually had snow days.
Yeah.
Which is why I always takes me a little while to get used to this, but certainly makes sense and definitely allows for planning. So we, again, we have in front of us the current 2025-2026 school calendar. It has an end date of school as June 12th, and we're being asked Friday, June 12th, which
is
really accommodates graduation well. And we're being asked to act on approving Friday, June 12th, 2026 as the graduation date for this senior class.
And to be clear, should we have any snow days this year, and I'm being told the Farmers Almanac says we will, but we would then have 4 days to make up snow days in the following week, the 15th, 16th, 17th, and 18th. Seniors would be invited to return for those school days, even though it would be post-graduation for them. All other students will be expected and required to attend on those 4 days as well. Should there be more than 4 snow days in this year, we would push into the next week, the 22nd, because of Juneteenth on the 19th. So again, I just want to make those, and it's been a long time since we've had more than 4 snow days, but it's not impossible. And we have had more than 4 snow days in other years. It's just been a while now since that has happened.
And
So I just wanted to make those caveats clear.
And I know when we first had this opportunity a couple of years ago as a board, when the state allowed us to vote on this early, Ms. Chaff did a great job of also explaining to us that, if there's a day or if there's a 2, that accommodating seniors with exams, et cetera, is something that the teachers and the administrators are well prepared to do at that point.
Not at all unusual and easily accommodated by the high school staff, correct?
All right. Is there a motion then to act on setting this graduation date for Friday, June 12th, 2026?
So moved. Second.
Any discussion, concern?
I bet they're going to be happy they went to school before Labor Day now.
The Friday graduation date is great.
It's the earliest date we put on a calendar in a while.
Yeah,
Yeah, we had
absolutely.
Friday the 13th last year.
Right.
Yes,
Right.
beat it by 1.
Worked differently,
Yeah.
yeah.
And then we had one day after.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
One day after. Yep. All right. So I have a motion and a second. All in favor? Aye. That's everyone. Thank you. All right. 9.5 is a receive item. It is our 26-27 preliminary budget timeline. Here we go. So we have 2 pages of dates here. I will take the opportunity to mention that one of the dates is coming up as soon as tomorrow. The Board of Education Operations Committee, chaired by Mr. Del Ventura, will be with the rest of us holding a meeting tomorrow night. It is our workshop for public input on the 2026-27 budget. And it is the moment or the time in which the public is invited to come and address the board about things they would like to see in the budget. We don't have numbers yet. We don't have a draft budget from the administration. That will come to us at the beginning of January. But this is the time to make those requests or comments about things that you would like the administration and the board to be thinking about as the budget is being put together over the fall. So again, this is just a receive item, but I encourage all of us, and I'm speaking to myself as I say it out loud, to go through this and put the dates that involve us on our calendars as we jump into this process.
Thank you.
All right. 9.6 is to receive for possible action, ratification of the contract between the Guilford Board of Education and the Guilford Association of Educational Administrators. So 3 of us on the board participated in the contract negotiation. I'm sorry?
I'm sorry, just a language clarification. The administrators have already voted on this and ratified the contract tonight.
Right.
We're asking for the board's approval of the contract. It's a minor difference.
No, that's right. It says receive for possible action, but we are, I did note the signature, Donna's signature, so I think we are prepared unless.
Yes, they have already ratified.
They've ratified it, right.
That verb applies to their decision. Your decision tonight would be to approve the contract.
The contract. Thank you. I have been in several contract negotiations over the last few months, but I believe this one was
Myself.
you, Amy, and I were on, participated in this particular negotiation. I'm going to note the highlights of that negotiation, but I am also going to invite Mr. Hamill if I miss something important. A couple of things that we negotiated with the administrators. One is, this is a 3-year contract, as so many of our contracts with our staff are. An increase in salary of 3.25% in the first year, 3.25% in the second year, and 3% in the third year. It is our understanding from our labor attorney that is really in line with the average that we're seeing across the state for similar type contracts with school administrators.
I apologize, this is the administrative contract. It's not the NAB.
It wasn't UNAB. It was Dick and Jen and I. You're right.
Yeah.
We have been involved in
a lot of negotiations flying around.
Yes.
We'll get to ours later.
And it went so well that I've already volunteered to serve on this one again next year.
Oh, okay.
There we go. Those are the salary increases. We increased by 0.25% every year. The amount that we put into the tax sheltered annuity. So it's now 3.25, 3.5, and 3.75% over the next 3 years. We did, through this process, make our director of athletics, who was technically a 10-month employee, into a 12-month employee to make that position a 12-month position. In reality, our DA had been doing a number of things over the summer. So this really solidified the position to reflect what we need our director of athletics in that position to do and the amount of time we need them for.
And it moves what had been per diem compensation over the summer into the base salary. And so it really, financially, it was essentially a wash. Yes.
Absolutely. What am I missing, Mr. Hamill? Am I missing anything?
We did add about the work year.
Oh, right. Thank you.
Where a maximum of 10 days vacation might be carried over to the next school year. If more than 10 days are available, the balance would be added to the employee's sick day account.
Right.
And to be clear, the 10-day carryover was an existing benefit. The only modification to that is that, for instance, an administrator who had 12 unused vacation days at the end of the school year, the 2 above 10 don't carry over as vacation days, but can be carried over as sick days so that the individual wasn't losing those days at the carryover. It's important to note that upon separation from the district, there's no cash value to those sick days. So while the individuals may be growing a safety net, they're not tucking those away for later compensation.
We didn't make very many changes to the health insurance because of where the administrators have been.
That's right. There was just a language clarification.
Right. Okay.
Nothing of substance.
Thank you for your help. All right. Again, we are being asked to.
Can I ask one?
Oh, you
question?
can.
Sorry. Yeah,
No, please ask as many
Only
questions
because
as you
it may
want.
just have been already corrected, but on page 13, under tuition reimbursement, the second paragraph, it just says the board will set aside amount equal to 10,000 for the 2023-24 year, 15,000 for 24-25, and then
thank you.
18,000 for 25-26.
Right.
So I'm assuming that maybe the years are wrong there, or if that's old language.
That's old language as we built up. The dollar amount of 18 will stay static through the life of the new contract. And so we need to make sure that that gets corrected. Thank you for that catch. So again, as we ask for your approval tonight, we will ask for your approval with that correction to item 6.7 in the contract.
And so essentially what we're saying is that the board will set aside amount equal to $18,000
for each year.
for this purpose.
We will wash out the dates completely.
Okay.
Correct.
Okay.
That was a
Thank you. That's
it was a
great-
ramp up to
that's a
that.
great catch. No, that's a great catch.
Old version, so I wasn't.
No,
yeah.
that's a great
that's a good
catch.
catch.
That's a really important catch. Anything else?
Will this contract then have to go back to get re-ratified by those folks who already signed it?
I don't believe that that's a substantial change. I don't think that they would stick to their guns and say, we want to go back to the value of year one in the contract. I'm sure that they will approve.
I would agree.
Yeah.
If we need to take a pro forma vote, they can do that very quickly.
Yes, and we can
It's
do
a
that.
small unit.
But thank you. Yeah, no, it's also a great question. Any other questions as people review this? No. All right. Okay, so can I have a motion, please, to approve the contract between the Guilford Board of Education and the Guilford Association of Educational Administrators that has been ratified by the administrators and just requires our approval?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstained? All right, so we will make that change. We will make sure that Ms. Pidlincy is aware of that. If she has any concerns, we can certainly address it, but we're guessing that that should not be a problem.
Right. We'll ask her to check with her membership, get a corrected version for signature by the two of you.
Yep.
And if she feels the necessity to revote before she signs the corrected version, we'll leave that in their hands.
Okay, terrific. And again, I want to thank the board members who participated in this process as well. All right. 9.7 is to act on revisions to Regulation 5005.
Yes. Okay, we've talked about this one a lot.
Yes.
So everyone, I hope, took some time to review the Connecticut School Climate Regulation that we are hopefully going to adopt tonight. This is essentially Guilford Board of Education adopting Connecticut state statute on climate policy. So the purpose of this regulation is to dictate reporting, assessment, and responses to challenging behaviors, bullying behaviors. And this regulation really defines who is involved. It defines what behaviors constitute challenging behaviors, and then describes a tiered response for administrators, parents, students to help manage challenging behaviors. Does anyone have any questions or comments now that you've had a few weeks to look at this particular regulation?
It brings the regulations into alignment with the new required policy established by the new state statute.
Right.
It's a long sentence, but that's what we are.
Absolutely.
Maybe you missed it, but I know it's not explicitly stated in the regulation who is the school climate specialist.
The The district-wide climate specialist is Ms. Kennedy, one of the assistant principals here at the high school. Every other school has she's also the high school climate specialist. At the two middle schools, I believe the climate specialist is the assistant principal in each building. And at the elementary schools, the climate specialist is the principal at each building.
Any other questions about this? All right, so the policy committee is asking that we act on and approve the revisions to Regulation 5005, Connecticut School Climate. So I'm going to ask for a motion to do so.
So moved.
Second. All in favor? Aye. Opposed or abstained? None. All right, thank you. That's unanimous. All right, 9.8 is to discuss policy 5128, student use of personal communication devices. So this is part of the board's kind of longer term discussion of cell phone use. And this piece of it is really not addressing the AI piece that we've also been discussing about. This is very specific to essentially the cell phone and personal technology use policy. To date, we have had a discussion at the policy committee level. We had a workshop meeting at the end of September to discuss this. We are, as we left our workshop meeting last month, there was an interest in diving into the Teague report, kind of reminding ourselves what was in that Teague report. There are in our Board of Ed materials tonight some.
I think it's the executive.
The whole executive summary from that. Also, some time to read some articles. Some of us have been kind of reading articles before, but an opportunity to do that and to give this more thought. Likewise, I think no doubt the administration has been doing the same thing. We are not voting on this tonight. This is a continuation of a conversation. I'm going to kind of summarize where I think we're at and welcome any corrections or different interpretations. But based on our conversation at the end of September, I think there were a number of things we noted. One was mentioned a number of times that probably one of the most important things that's being requested, if we look across the Teague survey and respondents, is a consistent policy across classrooms, across the school. Doesn't necessarily mean the same policy across the district. That's something that's still a discussion. The second thing that we discussed and came up as kind of points that we want to continue moving forward are whether we want this to focus perhaps not solely, but primarily on any disruption to classroom and learning, or whether we also want this policy to address focus more broadly on the impact of cell phone use on kids' mental health, wellness, which were we to want to include that as a primary focus, could lead us in a more expansive direction in terms of the policy. And there was also some discussion of timeline. Whether we continue a discussion and decision-making over a shorter period of time and consider something that could be enacted, for instance, in January, or whether we feel like we need more time to take a thoughtful approach. Am I missing anything from a summary of last?
No, I'm looking back at our notes.
Okay.
On that meeting or the minutes. You had said last time you would like policy and the timeline to be on the next BOE agenda,
Right.
which it is.
I
And
think
a lot
that's a
for
good
public comment, the October meeting.
I think that's a good summary of where we were.
That's right.
I would like to add that I think there's a significant piece of information in today's Hartford Current in that Representative Leeper, who is the co-chair of the Education Committee, suggested pretty strongly today in that article that she would be advocating for a statewide policy that would, I believe the word used was ban school cell phones during the school day. And we don't know what those definitions will be. We don't know what that will look like. I think there'll obviously, should it pass, it would set some standards that would then leave some room for local implementation. But I just thought that it was an important piece of information that I noticed a few hours before tonight's meeting. So I
That
thought
would
it was worth sharing.
happen until the legislative session was complete, which is in May. I was saying, and then it would have to be signed by the governor. So,
Right. I just think as we talk about timeline, it's interesting to think that could be something that could happen before the close of this school year at a state level. Shouldn't necessarily stop a conversation locally, but it might be something to keep in the back of our minds as we continue our discussion locally.
So, I'm willing to structure this conversation or open the floor if there are places, if any of my colleagues have a place or the administration has a place that they want to start. I think we had conversations in our workshop meeting about yonder pouches, about bell to bell, about different approaches, about what different approaches would mean for staff in the schools. For instance, if you had a bell to bell policy which defined bell as the opening bell of the day and the closing bell of the day, but we're not using yonder pouches, then what would that mean in terms of school administration responsibility for lunchtime or passing and enforcement? So we touched on a number of things, and I think it's fair to say that there's at least a range of initial thoughts, though no one has, I don't think, landed in a final position.
Another item that we were asked to look into was to identify a cost if we were to include yonder pouches as part of the solution.
Right.
And we believe a starting place for a yonder pouch would be approximately $60,000. That price could go up and this would cover the high school only, not Adams.
Yep.
That price could go up if we were to need to purchase more of the magnet releases. And so there'll be a slight increase depending on that. There are also now other vendors. So while we keep using the word yonder, that is a private vendor, and there are other options available at lower price points by other vendors and other providers at this time. So there are knockoff pouches that provide the same locking mechanism that keeps students from accessing their phones during the school day. But I think a rough figure to work with would be $60,000 to $70,000 as a ballpark holder. I would remind the board that because of another policy change made at the end of last year, we had rolled over approximately $130,000 that could be approved by this board for appropriate educational expenditures.
Right. So I'm happy to start where people want to start.
I want to discuss one point. It's specifically between the differences between K through 8 and the high school, and that is the first bullet point in which there's a significant difference. And the difference K through 8, the statement is devices must be powered off and stored out of sight during all instructional and non-instructional tasks. We then shift to a bit more relaxed rule where it says devices must be silenced and out of sight during all instructional times unless a teacher authorizes for educational purposes.
For high school.
For high school. My argument would be keep them the same. Turn them off. If we're going to have them in school, they should be off. If we're going to allow them to use them during lunch period, during study halls, you have the ability to turn them back on. My argument would be they should be off.
I think we were hearing that pretty consistently through our last conversation.
And we hear about the watches, we hear about the buzzing, just the idea that phone is on in your bag, on your person somewhere. Has that ability to really take your attention elsewhere. If it's off, it's off. It's not going to be, your watch is not going to be dinging. The phone is going to be off. And I think there's a good opportunity that phone stays off for the majority of the day, as opposed to turn it on for a minute and then turn it back off. To our point about passing times, we know how busy the students are during passing times.
There's a nice convergence over the last year between what the research says, and the research says a lot more now than it did a year ago. It's almost definitive. You'd have a hard time arguing against the point I'm about to make, and the notion that we want to be consistent. Your argument for consistency, I think, falls into this. The research is clear. This is harmful. It's far more harmful and insidious than a lot of people understand. We've heard accurate information tonight from one parent and from others. So I would argue that the research is compelling. Not only the research, the actual experience, both in the state and across the country, is equally convergent on this. That is, people have found that by banning it from end to end has been nothing but good. Yeah, there are problems with implementation, but nothing compared to the benefits. So I would argue from our point of view, given that we spent a lot of time on it, that we agree in principle that we ban the use of cell phones and other devices for everybody, for every grade. On principle, that's where we're moving. And we only have one thing left to decide at that point, is how we can implement that. Do we go to pouches? Do we go to cubbies? And then also agree that what would our timeline be? What should we say now would be our goal as a way of signaling to people that this is coming. If it turned out we wanted to do it by January, and we find out that sounds great, but it's going to create some real problems for us to do that, I can live with that. But every day we don't do something, I think people are being accidentally at least harmed, but it's not accidental anymore. We actually know it's happening. I mean, and so I don't think there's much room for discussion any longer about if. It's how and how soon. I throw that out, and I can give you a review of literature on this that is convincing.
Yeah, I've spent a lot of time just in the last month just looking at how it's rolling out in other states and other cities and communities. And, there was a few pieces by CBS Sunday Morning, interviewed kids in a high school in the Midwest, and they were all very relieved, was like the sentiment. They said it took time, but they were like, it's such a relief to not have to check my Instagram 4 times between those 5 minutes I go to class, or see the post that someone made about, so it was just really interesting because I expected them to have like a list of grievances. But, like to your point, the research is very clear. We know that. It's just kind of like start times. We know the research is there. But with the effect on the older students, I do understand with one of our, students said here tonight that there's a variety of experiences just locally that we can look to. And I do agree with you. I think it's, the consistency has to be there. And I think, expecting that discipline to just happen, where you take a high schooler and a middle schooler and give them different parameters. I think for families, it'll be a lot easier to reinforce it. I think the community will be easier to reinforce it if it's a unilateral policy throughout the buildings. And it creates, as the kids graduate into the other schools, they know the policy, they know the behavior expectations. And sure, it'll be an adjustment. I would love to take my phone and throw it in the Long Island Sound. But, our lives as adults have different demands on them. But for kids, they're here to learn and they're here to socialize and develop socially and emotionally. And that's one of the premises of our district. And if we're not supporting them in that, then we're not doing our job.
And to go to Katie's earlier points about, are we interested in this from an academic point of view, a classroom point of view, or from a social-emotional development point of view?
Yeah.
The research is equally clear. This is not about, you can't segment this. First of all, most learning is social, both in and out of the classroom. The fact is, the dangerous part of this is every bit as big at the social level. And that's what we're really trying to do. In fact, I would argue that once we make a policy, we should even go to the community and say, as parents should join us in trying to figure out ways in which they can structure their own homes in ways that they're helping their own kids, so that we're in this together. And as an editorial, I would say that we're in a position right now because the state has not acted. State Department already knows better and hasn't acted on this. State legislature knows better and the governor has not acted on this. So we, in every school district, have been forced to independently make decisions in which the knowledge is already common and would have been a lot easier for us here and for the kids in Connecticut if we all agreed. And so it's a shame, but
Well, I will say
we're a
that
Board of Education and we take leadership on this.
the state has set the stage for this. The governor did come out with, and the State Department of Education did come out with very clear recommendations and expectations that every district would establish a policy by a certain time frame.
But enough to
And I
every
think
district,
it's the
fine.
ramping up. I can't predict the future of where the state is probably headed in terms of, but as we know, we have 169 different municipalities that like to operate independently, and that's how it's always
Exactly
been.
my point.
Right.
It was time for leadership to overcome the problem of 169 localities. That's leadership.
Other thoughts, comments?
I just want to add, and I mentioned it last meeting, we're not going to get this right the first time. I think that's okay.
Yeah.
I think it's okay if this matures with us. You know, there are going to be learning lessons from this. And whether we go yonder pouches, whether we go out of sight, you know, I think there's going to be downstream effects that we just don't know about yet. And it's okay for this to be a living policy in which we revisit it in 6 months or a year and make changes to it based on what we see. So let's just be okay not getting it right the first time. Let's just do something.
And let's hope we're happily surprised at how well it goes, right? We don't know. But, yeah, and I remember, Arnold, you saying something to the effect of that transition time, that so much can happen in those 5 minutes. And you're talking about, you know, the distraction it creates. And wouldn't it be interesting to just, and believe me, I'm going to go home to a house full of teenagers in college that are going to have a word with me about this. But I think, to your point, there's this like behavior that happens that a lot can transpire in 5 minutes that can be really negative for a lot of kids at a very vulnerable age and around social media. And so if we can just save them from that, then we've advanced their mental well-being leaps and bounds. And wouldn't that even be worth it?
And so much takes the stress off the teachers as well. I mean, so right now they go into a classroom and it's different rules for different teachers, and they are, but it's not clear. And so I think this structure gives the teachers the ability to say this is the policy.
Yeah.
Follow up on what you're saying. I am personally in support of the Bell ban. Just for that very reason. I think that there's maybe a little disagreement amongst the board here, board members. But I also said that the real two important things are sort of instructional comprehension and retention, which is huge at school, but also the social emotional aspect that's saying. And they're not mutually exclusive by any means. And we all know when we're doom scrolling at 11 in our beds or whatever, an Instagram reel is 30 seconds to a minute and a half, and that's enough to make you upset or make you lose sleep or make you not fall asleep quickly. Or so bringing that into an academic environment is fatal.
And Arnold, just to be super duper clear, when you say bell to bell, you're saying bell in the morning, bell
into
in the afternoon, end of day, end of school
end of
day.
day release. Yeah.
Okay.
Other comments now?
Just want to put my opinion on.
No, it's really important actually, because I don't want to make assumptions that people who are colleagues that are not speaking are in 100% alignment. But I'm certainly hearing more and more support for no cell phone use during the day.
Phone off.
Phone off. And
Not buzzing, not vibrating.
and
watches.
It seems to me that, as I think is clear, if we are landing in that place, then the next piece is implementation. What does that look like? I am personally very interested in having the administration think about this a little bit as we are thinking about it, because I
I would like to create a policy that really supports that these cell phones are off, but doesn't have administrators then spending a lot of
Policing all that,
time
yeah.
and policing, right? So I really would like to work with you and administrators and really think about what is the best way to do that. Is it yonder patches? Is it cubbies or when you first come in? What other ways can we do this so that we are meeting the goal that we'd like to meet for our students, but also have our staff not spending a lot of time chasing down kids who are not following.
I appreciate that. And I think as we discussed at the last meeting, at least early on, there will be implementation and enforcement.
Absolutely.
Right. There's going to be a commitment to time in any way that we approach this. I think that as I listened to comments that both John and Dick made at the last meeting and that John mentioned here today, that if we think about this incrementally, I mean, it's clear that I'm hearing from the board that this needs to be consistent K through 12. So we will remove the differentiation between the middle schools and the high school and how we define the school day. It's clear that there is a desire to have a policy in place that would cover the full school day so that the expectation would not just be instructional periods, but would include passing time and the lunchtime specifically. And then the question comes, do we work with something like the policy that we had looked at from NFA that is off and away for the school day with an expectation that students store their phones in their backpacks, in their lockers, or in some kind of cubby that is provided for them? That will require teachers to enforce it in the classroom level. That will require teachers to enforce it consistently at the classroom level. And as I mentioned at the last meeting, it may require some work with the high school administration about finding ways to bring in additional supports into that lunchroom to make sure that we are able to message and monitor and enforce that expectation, particularly during the lunch wave. To go to yonder pouches addresses that concern for teacher implementation in the classroom, for passing times, and for the lunchroom, but creates a bigger logistical challenge at arrival and at dismissal. Listening to the comments earlier, we could go back as an administrative team and bring you a revised policy that addresses the length of the school day, the consistent implementation, catches the passing time in the lunch period with an off and away expectation and policy. If we were to launch that in January of this year and see good results, we could then maintain that. If we were to launch that in January of this year and find challenges in implementation, then it would give us the opportunity in June to discuss again, do we want to bring in yonder pouches over the summer and build in that implementation? I'm hearing this as I sit in the meeting now. I would want to take this back, work on revising the policy, and absolutely include our high school and middle school administrators in that policy. We could then have that policy back to all of you by your next regular meeting or at a special policy meeting if we wanted to move this more expeditiously. We don't have a policy meeting coming up later this month connected to the workshop, but we could schedule a special policy meeting where we could pretty quickly turn around that revised policy. So I just floated that. That could be option A. Option B could be that this board wants to move to the yonder pouch sooner rather than later. I'm using yonder pouch the way we use the word Kleenex. It'll likely not be a yonder branded, but we could certainly do something, some locking. So I guess I throw that out as two options and would be really interested in what the interest on the board would be.
So if we have a special policy meeting, would that allow us to kind of hear again from administrators?
Yes.
I still feel like I want to hear from administrators their hopes for implementation during study hall and during lunch. I am absolutely in favor of a bell-to-bell ban on cell phones. I just am terrified that that is asking for something that we just cannot implement. Like, I want to know if administrators feel confident that that can happen and they're not going, oh my God, losing sleep over how are we going to keep kids off their phones during study halls?
Yes, I would absolutely schedule that meeting and then invite the administration from the middle and high schools and even some of the elementary principals who I know are just interested in how the conversation. Remember, we do have third and fourth graders who are coming to school with phones and watches as well. So yes, we will absolutely make sure that we have some of the team there and encourage them to speak freely at that meeting.
And oh, sorry.
I was just going to say, I think it's worth having I think I mentioned this last meeting, it's worth having an honest conversation with the students as well, saying, you know, this is phase one, right? Phase two, if it doesn't go well, is yonder patches. You know, and almost investing them in the policy.
Well, that was one of the things I was going to ask about, because we have this progressive discipline and restorative practices. And there's like, you know, it's like 3 strikes, you're out. So I'd love to get some more input from the administrators. Is that really the best way to do this? Or should it just be like zero tolerance policy? You know, sorry, we found your phone. We're using it in lunch. It's going to be at the office.
Brantford has built its own
but I would love the
progressive
input of
policy.
the administrators on that.
Yep.
More.
But we have real life experience of people next door who have in fact been thinking through this and have lived through it now and have wisdom. And a lot of the things that we are surmising they have faced, and it's not as great as we're surmising. That is, to their surprise, okay, once this got implemented, within 2 weeks, became virtually a non-issue. Okay.
This is you're talking about Brantford, just to set the context.
That's right. And their high school is a few hundred less than ours. But the point is, they were just as concerned, just as naive in their thinking, did a lot of work on it, and they jumped. And they seem to be quite satisfied, and the results to them have been revelatory. Now, they have yonder pouches. To be fair, they got yonder pouches because, in fact, the yonder company chose them. There was a lottery, and they won the lottery, and they got free yonder pouches. But the principal there told me that the yonder pouch cost was somewhere between $20 and $30. Now, we'll have to check the cost of these. That 60 is way high, but and there may be new other versions coming out cheaper. So, but ultimately, there's also the alternative. There's other school districts in the United States. They have done this and have simply charged the cost of the underpouches. So it's like buying school supplies. You know, you got yourself $1,000 iPhone. Okay, when you don't think twice about renewing every 3 years, and you're going to buy a $30 yonder pouch. That's the price of having a cell phone. So if money became the issue, we can think about alternatives. I'm not arguing for that, but what they have found is a clear policy. It's not a good for us. It's done, over. And people get used to it. People get used to it very quickly. And why aren't we just creating conditions under which people can make that transition if we have enough evidence?
The other thing I do want to also keep in mind, because it certainly caught my attention in the TEA report as well, is, and we heard it in one of the public comments, that Adams students surveyed, 47% of them said, I use it at some point. And in that school, we have you may not have your phone out at all during the day. So I do think, while I would like to hear, as we've already discussed, input from administration, I do want to keep that in mind, right? It's not just teachers, staff, administrators chasing kids. It's kids gathering in the bathroom because there's no adults in there making sure they're not turning their phones on. I don't want to turn, I also don't want to turn our schools into places where kids have to sneak off to look at them, and teachers are trying to figure out how to handle that situation, right? So that, again, I'm not at a place where I'm saying, absolutely, let's go yonder patch. But there is an advantage to those in a number of ways that we are going to want to consider.
Right, or whatever that looks
or
like.
Or a cubby, whatever it is.
Like.
Happy to think outside the box. But just things I think we want to think of. I must say, as we continue the conversation, I know there are members of the community and in particular people who are experts in child psychology and other disciplines who are wondering why it's taking us so long. But I do think that we have, over a period of conversations, really started, and it doesn't mean we all agree and we will all vote the same way, but really starting to kind of coalesce around, I think, some important ideas here, which I'm just feeling more confident as we move forward. And totally agree, John, with really happy to land somewhere and reevaluate as we go, and not hesitate to move because it might not work perfectly at each time.
We even say that here, this policy will be reviewed annually by committee, including administrators, teachers, students, parents, guardians, community representatives. Feedback was solicited, revisions will be made.
And I do appreciate the desire to have the administrators at the conversation. I think if it's okay with the board, I will reach out to our student reps who I reminded are non-voting members of this board. And so we don't usually think to invite them to workshops or special meetings, but I will be happy to invite them and make it clear that they're welcome to be part of the conversation. And I will come with a revised draft. We're still looking at and quoting from a draft that we put together initially, I think in August. And so we have come forward from that. There's been some movement made. So at this point, I'm still hearing that I will stop short of yonder pouches in that next draft, but that doesn't mean that in the next conversation, you're the board. You can decide, obviously, if we like what that looks like for a mid-year implementation, or if you want to move more quickly to a pouch solution, to a non-branded pouch solution.
I think what you're saying is really important, Paul, to have students present, because hearing Dick's experience speaking to administrators from Brantford versus the students from Brantford, it's like two different worlds.
They may not be surprised to find out that principals and kids don't always see the world the same way.
But I'm just saying, like, it sounds like it was a great rollout in Brantford, and they got what they want. But at the same time, the students are like, maybe they're fomenting something underneath, or struggling. Who knows? I personally have seen, for myself, I've sort of been going on this journey. Started very lenient opinion on where we should go, and now I'm finding myself sort of coming more to a much more stringent bell sort of attitude on it. So,
Well, we heard very clearly that bell to bell in Guilford will define the morning bell to the afternoon bell. I'm not hearing any interest in maintaining instructional periods. And so we will bring you a revised draft that speaks that way to the high school level.
And I want to be clear that I think it's a great idea to have student reps there. I would strongly suggest, so that they don't feel like they've been invited and then their opinions don't matter, that they understand where the board is leaning at this point. Yeah. Because I just don't want to set them up to feel like I got invited, but decisions have already been made.
Or that they go out to their friends and they feel the responsibility of how that vote ended up, right? I don't.
So again,
Principal Chaff and I will do some, we'll
exactly.
do some
I just want to be transparent,
Yep.
so that if they choose to come to the meeting, they understand where we are thus far.
Yes.
Because I just don't ever want to suggest we're inviting input on things that we've already decided to that point. Right. Because that just feels like you've been misled.
Yeah,
okay.
I appreciate that.
All right. Terrific. Any other thoughts, comments on this topic? Okay, terrific. And then we will continue to grow in our understanding and make some final decisions very soon.
Back to our agenda, wherever that is.
Back to our agenda, wherever it is in my pile of papers. Thank you, Kristen. Yes, no, thank you. 9.9 is to receive recommendations from the policy committees. I'm turning back to you again. Okay.
Let's see if I can see.
I have paper. Oh, yeah. Would you
reading glasses?
Would you like us to hand you glasses?
I'm okay. I can see that one. I made my screen bigger.
Okay, so this is a new policy, number 5007, regarding restorative practices response.
And I'm so sorry, I'm going to interrupt you just so we're all, there is also a revisions to policy 3724. You're going a tiny bit out of order.
Oh.
Go down a little bit. One.
Meal charging before.
Okay.
Restorative.
There you go. All right. So first, this is for everyone to review over the next month. And this is revision to policy 3724 on dining services meal charging. Really minor changes that we are suggesting. I will just read through the changes for everyone. The very bottom of this policy is suggested to read, accounts with unpaid meal charges reaching 30 meals will be referred to the McKinney-Vento Act Homeless Liaison by June 30th of each year. The unpaid meal debt must be reimbursed by the Board of Education funds and not the not-profit school food services account.
Okay.
So food services in the district is a not-for-profit.
Right.
So this will be coming out of our Board of Education funds, not school meal plans.
Okay.
Okay, and then the changes continue. The Board of Education may continue efforts to collect on the unpaid meal debt from families. Funds collected by the BOE will reduce the total debt amount and will not be returned to the dining services. So we collect, they come back to Board of Ed. They do not go back to dining services, and dining services does not collect the debt.
Right.
So it's all up to the board or the district. So that's it. Those are the little minor changes.
Okay, and that's a receive item.
That's a receive item.
And then, sorry, because I interrupted you, back to policy
And back to policy 5007, also a receive item. And this is restorative practices response. So this is the board's suggestion as we are committed to improving school climate. And this will define challenging behavior, implementing restorative practices, defining bullying, and it is really in keeping with the climate survey or the school climate that we approved earlier in this meeting.
Terrific.
So take a look at this. This just is really...
It's really a companion piece to the policy that we were required to adopt by state statute.
Right.
So this is just definitions.
Yeah, okay. And I assume as usual, if any Board of Ed member has a question about it versus kind of an opinion that we
Yep,
discussed
and
this
this will
week, they
all
can
look
reach
familiar.
out.
I feel like we've
Right.
seen a lot of this language over the last 6 months.
Terrific. All right. Excellent. Thank you. All right. 10, reports from committee. I'm not sure what that word is I just said, but it meant to be committees. Reports of committees. Policy Committee. Do you have anything else to add?
I do not.
Operations Committee. Anything to add?
Nothing else to add?
Nothing else to add. Curriculum Instruction and Assessment Committee.
You're meeting on October 27th, 6 o'clock at Adams.
Okay.
And I'm sending out the agenda on that. But we'll be dealing with such issues as the results of the statewide testing.
Okay. Terrific. Liaisons to town committees. Anything to report out from any town committees? And we're still working with Learn about how to be engaged. So we're up to number 11, which is public comments. These do not necessarily have to be on the board agenda. It's the opportunity for anyone in the public to address us on any topic. As with the earlier public comment, we are going to ask people to stick within the 3 minutes. But if anyone's interested, please come up to the podium, state your name and address.
Hello, good evening. My name is Brittany Stalsberg, 170 Chestnut Grove. I am the mother of 3 children in Guilford, a first grader and kindergartner at Cox, and a preschooler at Lakes. Thank you for the opportunity to speak tonight about my observations and experiences as both a parent and an active school and PTO volunteer. As you know, this year, the first grade at Cox went from 3 classes to 2 classes, or from 13 to 14 students per class to 21 or 22. Only 6 weeks into the year, I have already seen the negative impact of such a drastic increase in class size, and other parents in the grade have observed the same. I come here tonight also as the PTO's grade representative to share the concerns not only of myself, but of other parents who also have children in the first grade. We hear from our children and observe directly through our volunteer experiences that these class sizes are unmanageable. We are blessed with 2 wonderfully competent and experienced teachers who truly do the best they can. However, significant time and energy is being spent enforcing rules, corralling students, and managing behaviors. This contributes to an unstable environment that slows down learning. Us parents are very concerned that this is happening during such a critical time in our children's educational journey. Last year, my son came home every day talking about what he learned, including books he read and projects he worked on in specials. Now, when I ask him what he learned in school, he tells me about all of the reminders the teacher has to give the class about rules and expectations, and about kids having to go to the principal's office for their behavior. His stories are now about classroom management, not his education. He was also physically harmed by another student in the classroom this year, an incident that could have been prevented in a smaller class or a class with another adult present. Tomorrow, I will come to the budget meeting to ask you to make sure the second grade next year has 3 classes, but we also need to address what's happening now. I ask that you allocate funding to hire 1 paraprofessional this year that can split their time between the 2 classes to help manage the classroom and restore an environment that is focused on learning. Moving forward, I also ask you to reconsider the recommendation that first grade has 16 to 22 students per class. Research is clear that in such a critical year as first grade, class sizes should stay small, 15 per class according to the NEA, no more than 18 per the U.S. Department of Education. The guidance that includes 16 to 20 students is outdated, passed in 1999, 26 years ago. Our knowledge about what elementary learning, as well as the growing needs in the student population, necessitate a change to this policy. Please lower the recommended class sizes so that future classes are not negatively impacted as the first grade at Cox is today. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Carrie Gilhooly, Oakwood Drive. Good evening. My name is Carrie Gilhooly. I'm a parent of 3 young children who have long careers ahead of them in Guilford Public Schools. My oldest is a first grader at Cox, and my middle daughter is in her second year of preschool at Guilford Lakes. Tonight, I want to share 2 current challenges that are directly affecting our district's youngest learners. 1, class sizes and support in grade 1 at A.W. Cox, and 2, inequities in related arts specials across our preschool programs. First, at A.W. Cox, the class sizes. Last year, kindergarten classes were 13 and 14 students. This year, the number of sections was reduced, and the first grade class is now of 22 students, a 50%, greater than 50% increase. By comparison, nearby districts like Madison and Region 17 keep K2 classes below 20 students. And in Milford, where I work, the board has made it a clear priority to keep classes at that size. Smaller classes matter deeply in education. They impact safety, individual attention, and long-term learning outcomes. Even with smaller classes, last year my daughter was physically harmed by a classmate on 4 occasions, 4 reported occasions. I can only imagine the additional challenges that teachers face this year, managing 22 students with less time for instruction and more for behavior management. Smaller classes in early years aren't a luxury. They're essential for success and safety. The second challenge I want to discuss is the preschool specials at Guilford Lakes. Last year, preschoolers had certified PE, art, and music teachers. I saw firsthand with my preschool child and my kindergartner the continuity from the early learning to elementary school. This fall, families learned that those certified specialists were replaced by play-based specials, a play-based special model, often relying on videos for music and movement. The staff member leading these sessions is doing her best, but she is not certified in art, music, or PE, and shouldn't be expected to replicate that expertise. I fully value play, but preschool classrooms already integrate play-based learning every day. What's missing now is a specialized instruction that builds creativity, motor coordination, and early exposure to the arts. And it's concerning that LEAP preschoolers are still receiving certified specialists while Lake students do not. That inequity shouldn't exist within one district. In closing, I respectfully ask the board to consider 2 priorities as you plan ahead within this school year. 1, support smaller class sizes or added instructional support at A.W. Cox in first grade. And 2, restore certified art, music, and PE specialists for Guilford Lakes preschool to ensure equity with Calvin LEAP. These are foundational investments in safety, equity, and high quality early learning for Guilford's youngest students. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Hi again, Shelley Farhady on Sunset Creek Road. I'll keep it brief. I was really delighted to hear Dr. Freeman boast about the average class sizes, but as you've heard tonight, it's not happening in first grade at A.W. Cox. Put really simply, first graders can be really rambunctious. That's just in their nature, but too many of them in the same classroom poses a real challenge. We have an incredible teacher. I cannot speak highly enough about her. I hope that goes in the minutes. She's incredible and doing her best. But when there's a group of kids who need focused behavioral input, it leaves the rest of the class unable to move forward with what they were supposed to do that day. Everything Brittany said is what my son is coming home and telling me also. It really spoke to my heart. So please, I urge you for this year, if there's any money in the budget to help with an additional adult in the classroom, that would be great. And for next year, please, if there's any way we can go back to a smaller class size, 21, 22, it's just too much. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Karen Connors, 483 Sawmill Road. I support what the 3 women have said. My child is in first grade, and I have another child in preschool at GCC. And for me, obviously, the size is a concern, and we definitely feel that having a para to help out is essential. My son, he doesn't often get in trouble, fortunately, and if he does, he's a growing human, and it's normal, but he does say that the teacher has to manage a certain few kids in class and that they can be interruptive, and they also can be very aggressive at times. I know I've spoken to you, Mr. Freeman, about outside time for children at his age. He's a 6-year-old boy, super active, enthusiastic, wants to move his body, and he has come home probably 3 times a week saying, I have to sit still. I have to sit still in circle time. It's so boring. It's so boring. They have no open windows in his classroom. It's literally just these lights that you look up at. And I can't imagine as an adult having to sit in a room without any windows all day for 8 hours. I just feel that we need to be able to have them go outside more. But the gym teacher doesn't take them outside during the day when it's beautiful out. I asked my son, did you go outside today for gym? No, we don't go outside. I talked to Natalie Hammond, who's phenomenal, and she said it's teacher-based about going out for snack time or extra recess time, and that hasn't happened. I know that the size of the class does, kind of hinder that ability to go outside more frequently. But it is apparent that, we need our children to see daylight. I mean, you can't just sit there all day at 6 years old being expected to sit still and to listen. I mean, that's just such a false expectation. Also it's like a factory. Our children are not meant to be a 9 to 5 adult at this point in time. They are to explore the world. They're to be out in nature. It's even, I know it's hard to have this, expectation, but maybe to go on nature walks or actually do something with outdoors, teach them how to garden a little bit. I know that's a, pretty high standard to have, but I just think we could do better for them because I think boys especially, I talked to you about this, that they have so much energy. And I think a lot of them get misdiagnosed with ADHD or, all the labels, but we just aren't letting kids be kids still. And I know that, you know, the size is a factor with going outside, and that Natalie, you know, with safety is a big concern, and they're amazing there. I love that school. I appreciate all teachers. I mean, you guys have your hands tied with what you're able to do. But I just think it'd be so beneficial for them to be outside more. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who?
James Austin, Oxbow Lane. So my wife and I, we've had kids in the school system since preschool Kelvin Lee, and we've been sort of watching in advance what's going to happen. They're in high school now. We've been watching them that the school times are going to start earlier and earlier. In the meantime, their sleep schedule has been shifting later and later, and especially when they hit that adolescent age, right? Because then all of a sudden they become night owls, and it's normal. They're adolescents. So now we have kids who are in first year of high school, and they are getting up at 6 o'clock, 6:30, because they get their bus at 7 o'clock. They don't get to sleep even with their best efforts and our best efforts until 11 p.m. So if you do the math, that's like 7 hours of sleep, meaning they're sleep deprived constantly. And, you know, if they're good kids, they're doing the best to get good grades and do sports and all the rest of it. I look at their eyes and they're sort of like baggy eyes and they're sleep deprived, and you can see they're not in a great mood. I think their learning would be better if their start time was later. We currently have a system where the youngest kids start latest and the oldest kids start earliest. It probably should be the reverse. I know you have bus schedules to deal with. I know that's a real problem. But we also have the health of adolescents to deal with. So my kids are getting up at 6:30, but there's also neurodivergent kids who need even more time to get ready. So they might be getting up before 6 o'clock. And we talked to our pediatrician who said, well, my goodness, this is just not healthy. They need more sleep. Their sleep schedule is going to go to 11. And I'm like, 11? Oh my gosh, 11 o'clock. We're trying to get them in bed at 9:30 or 10. Well, that's just not going to happen. Okay, so we're trying to adjust to the reality. And right now the reality is that they have an unhealthy amount of sleep that they're getting because of the school start times. So I would urge you to give more attention to this issue and try to shift either between schools or bus times or something so that the kids can get a healthy amount of sleep. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else who would like to address the board tonight? No one else?
Polly Reeder, 280 Sage Hollow Road. I just wanted to speak a little bit again in terms of Guilford's start time problem for teens, and also that it's not only a start time problem, because as freshman parents find out, and they often don't even realize that all the other parents of freshmen have the experience, that despite that 15-minute start time change that was like 7 years ago at this point, that a lot of the buses arrive by 7:10, that the very latest gets here by 7:15. It's like the last one or two. We also have semester exams, standardized tests at the high school and at Adams, starting before the kids should even be at school. And then the thing that I don't get is the high school has 8 of those exam days, and we pay and we have the buses ship everyone home, and they'll get home way before 1 o'clock, and they even had time to have lunch at school. So then they're like napping, and it's really unhealthy. It doesn't make any sense. So I think, the board has long ignored this. It's been something no one has wanted to talk about. We went through the pandemic. Things have only gotten worse, and we all know that, okay? We all know the state is not going to do anything. But if we think about it, last time the district looked at all this, now parents are in a completely different place. Mental health awareness and concern is rightfully way up there. There's a lot more working on Zoom, a lot more, working from home flexibility. And things are harder and harder and more stressful for our kids. then I go and I wonder about last fall, 26 outplacements, and 21 of those due to mental health was what I thought I heard reported, which is incredible and so sad. And then I wonder about, we've heard about special ed services, additional academic, social emotional supports that are needed. The number of 504s and IEPs increasing. All of those kids, all that stuff is worse because of chronic sleep deprivation, especially for the teens. It starts at Adams. So I just think that times have changed. This thing cannot be ignored any longer. I'm wondering, what is the suicidal behavior and hospitalization rate now for Guilford? Because the peer review article in the Journal of Adolescent Health in 2017, we were off the charts, even with all the socioeconomic and et cetera factors controlled for, way high. And there's so much the district does, and all of the coaching, the additional mental health counselors, et cetera, is fantastic, but it's spackle and Band-Aids.
Thank you.
Because we really need to address that main problem.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks very
Polly.
much.
Thanks.
And thank you very much for your service and your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else who would like to? I'll be quick.
Hi, my name is Cristiane da Costa. I live at 993 Layton Trail. And I just want to, again, reinforce what we just talked about here about the early time for the school. My daughter is in 9th grade now, and she's a good student and everything. She studies at home and she's good. But she's not an early bird. So for her to get ready, she takes a long time. So my husband and myself, we will get up at 6 because the school bus stops at 6:50 in our house. In our street, we have to walk there. But she has to get up at 5:30. Otherwise, she cannot get ready in time for the bus. And she's trying her best. And this year, we're surprised how independent she's becoming. But we can see how much she struggles and how tired she gets. Sometimes, like through dinner, she's already falling asleep. And we have to wake her up and say, "Oh, no, you gotta eat your dinner. You gotta be ready on the schedule." So, again, just like they were saying, we just want to see if that's possible to change this schedule, because when she was little, it was the opposite. She would wake up early by herself. Now she's older and her body's all changed. She tries her best, and then she's still struggling to get up early. And then I feel like she gets home very tired. And I'm starting to see the results of this sleep deprivation. So I would really appreciate if that's taken into account and hopefully some changes coming that way. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, and thank you all for being here and for your service to the town. My husband spoke earlier. I would second what was said about the early time for high school. It is just not sustainable for them. My daughter wakes up every morning at 5:45. 5:45. We wake up with her. We help with breakfast and getting them ready. But 5:45 every day for a 14-year-old kid is just not sustainable. We think about their mental health. We've been doing everything, like everybody here, I believe, since we were tiny kids, to get them to a good college at some point. And this seems right now like the biggest hurdle. Which seems so irrational compared to all the studies we have about this. I'm also really thinking about students who are neurologically different and how they have to deal with this as well, mental health and so forth. So please hear us when we talk about this. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who would like to address the board? All right. Thank you all for coming, and thank you for utilizing the public comment to share your thoughts with us. And as I said earlier, the community can also reach us by email. All of our
email addresses are on the website. So we're more than willing to hear input. We're coming to the close of the meeting. Any last comments, anything we need to address? All right.
No executive session.
No executive session, that's right. So I do want to then ask for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second. Got your name on that, right? All in favor? All right. Thank you so much for coming.